Hey everyone, welcome. Today we're going to dive into something I think is super interesting about the Japanese language, how you talk about family. It seems like it should be simple, right? But there's this whole other layer of social context that's built right into the words themselves.
All right, so let me ask you a simple question. How do you say mother in Japanese? You probably think you know the answer, right? Well, hold that thought.
Because you know what? The real answer is way more interesting than you think. It's not just a vocabulary quiz. This gets to the heart of how respect works in Japanese communication.
And that concept boils down to this number, 2. That's right. In Japanese, there are 2 completely separate sets of words for family members. So what's the deal with these 2 sets? It's all about perspective. You've got one set of words for your family and a totally different, more polite set for their family. Simple as that.
Okay, so let's break this down. First up, let's talk about your family, your inner circle. These are sometimes called the humble forms. So if you're talking about your own dad to a friend, you'd call him chichi. This is that humble, straightforward word for my father.
And it's the same deal for your mom. The word is ha-ha. So when you're telling a story about her, that's the word you use. Pretty easy to remember, right? Chichi and ha-ha for your own parents. All right, let's expand that circle a bit. Your grandfather, that's sofu, and your grandmother is sobo. If you're talking about your parents together as a unit, you say ryoshin. And the word for your family as a whole, that's kazoku. Okay, so what about siblings and kids? The same idea applies. For your own family, an older brother is ani, a younger brother is ototo, and a younger sister is imoto. And then, for your own children, a son is musuko, and a daughter is musume. And let's wrap up the inner circle here. For your own husband, the term is shujin. And for your wife, you've got a couple of common choices, like tsuma or kanai.
All right, so you've got the words for your family down. That's part 1. But that's only half the story, right? What happens when you're talking about someone else's family? Well, that's where things change. This is where the respectful form comes into play.
So, let's say you're asking your friend how their dad is doing. You would not use chichi. No way. You'd use the respectful term, which is oto-san. You can hear the difference, right? It just sounds more formal. And for mother, well, this is where the pattern really clicks. To talk about someone else's mom, you use okasan. I bet you've heard this one before. And now you know exactly when to use it. For other people's mothers. Okay, check this out, because a super clear pattern starts to show up here. For their grandfather, it's oji-san. For their grandmother, oba-san. Their parents as a unit, goryoshin. And their family, gokazoku. Are you seeing it? That little o or go at the beginning? That's a classic sign of respect in Japanese. And this pattern just keeps going for siblings and kids. A lot of the time, you're just adding that polite san suffix you've probably heard. So someone else's older brother is oni-san. Their older sister, oni-san. And look, it just continues down the list. Ototo-san, imoto-san, musuko-san, and musume-san. And last but not least, what about spouses? If you're talking about someone else's husband, you'd say goshujin. And for their wife, the polite term is okusan. Okay, I know that was a ton of vocabulary thrown at you, so let's put them all side by side. Seeing them lined up like this makes the whole system just click. And here we go. This table makes it crystal clear. Just look at the 2 columns. On the left, you've got the humble words for your crew, chichi, haha, ani, and on the right, the respectful, more formal words for everybody else, otosan, okasan, onisan. It's basically a system of social awareness and respect that's literally built into the vocabulary. How cool is that? So we've gone over the what, but now for the big question. Why? Why does this matter so much? And it's about way more than just being polite. This whole idea gets at a really fundamental piece of Japanese culture. So if there's one thing you remember from all this, what should it be? What's the one simple rule that makes sense of everything we just talked about? It's this. You use the humble forms like chichi and haha when you're talking about your own family, but you switch to the respectful forms like otosan and okasan when you're talking about someone else's family. This all ties back to a huge cultural concept in Japan called uchi soto, which basically means inside-outside. Your family is your uchi, your inside group, so you talk about them humbly. Everyone else is soto, or outside, so you show them respect by elevating them and their family. It's brilliant, really. And honestly, this quote just says it all, perfectly and simply. One is for your own family members, and the other is for other people's family members with respect. Couldn't have said it better myself.
So, from now on, when you're thinking about family words in Japanese, you'll know the secret. It's not just about what word to use. It's about whose family you're talking about. Now you are totally ready to go out and talk about their gokazoku with confidence and, of course, with respect. Thanks so much for tuning in.